car, SUV, or truck, guess what? You're in luck. Frontier Motors is down the street. Got the best deals that can't be beat. Don't overpay, come in today. Doing business the old-fashioned way. Frontier, we got the right price. Frontier, we'll treat you mighty nice. Frontier Motors, low overhead country.
Yes, indeed, and I have the owner of Low Overhead Country with us. Iven Streckel is here. Low Overhead Country, better known as Frontier Motors, located at 230 Beverly Parkway. Ready, willing, and certainly more than able to take care of every one of your used car needs. We would be happy to have you give them a call or give them a visit. 230 Beverly Parkway. Where is that? That's just over Highway 29 as you go west on Brent Lane. It's on the right-hand side. Or you can call him here for the next half hour. He will be our special guest on this edition of Talk at 10, the Frontier Motor Show, 478-3116, 478-3116. And he, Iven Streckel, will be pleased to take any phone call inquiry that you might aim his way. Good morning, sir.
Hey, Don, thanks so much. And this is 1370 Talk Radio. Like Don said, for the next half hour, I can take your call and help you get a value on your car. We're also videotaping this for our Blab TV subscribers, cable and satellite. So if you're watching this on TV, it's probably not a live show. We normally do this in the morning, and you're probably watching this in the afternoon and the evening. So if you still want to get a value on your car, Frontier Motors is open until 6 o'clock. There's a phone number on the screen if you're watching this on Blab. So you go ahead and call them and leave a message if we're not open, if it's after 6 o'clock. But we definitely will get back to you. And the values that we use are a little bit different than you get on the internet. I've got the internet in front of me, and you can get the Kelley Blue Book, the Edmunds, and a consumer's version of the NEDA book. But what we use at the radio station and TV station here is what I call a real value. And one of the books that we use is a Black Wholesale Guidebook. And the Black Wholesale Guidebook is sort of a secret book. It kind of gives you an idea of what a dealer would pay for a car. And of course, the dealers really don't want to share that information with you because they don't want you to know what they paid for a car. At Frontier Motors, I have no problem sharing the wholesale guidebook and the retail guidebook because people know that I've been listening to the show that we tell everybody we need to make a profit to stay in business. We just don't need to rip you off. And I think that's the difference between one dealership and another is the fact that some dealerships have to mark their vehicles up quite a bit higher than normal to either put that money in their pocket or because of their overhead. The other book that we use is the NEDA value. This value is different than the one on the internet. This is an official NEDA guidebook. And the reason we use this book is because our credit unions, our bankers, and most importantly, our insurance companies use this to value a vehicle as far as how much they would pay for replacement value and how much they would borrow on a car. That's not necessarily what you would pay. A lot of the time, the book is quite a bit higher than reality. Every once in a while, like on a Jeep Wrangler, for example, it's lower than reality. On some of the older Wranglers and some of the older Honda Civics and Toyota Corollas that have pretty good resale value, the book keeps dropping every month, but the value of the vehicle doesn't keep dropping. Therefore, the book is incorrect. That's the other reason that you would call Frontier Motors, talk to myself or one of our sales managers, and we will tell you, based on our opinion and our experience, if we feel the book is high or if it's low. All the bankers have these books, so they can share that information with you. Do not let the banker tell you this is an appraisal. You have to drive a car to do an appraisal. Well, you don't have to. You can look at a book. And that's what bankers do. They look at books. That doesn't mean that's what it's worth. You want to go to a dealership that praises cars from morning till night, and that's what we do at Frontier Motors, and we can share that information with you when you're in the market for the car, just to make sure that you don't pay too much. If you find a car for sale, maybe your neighbor's got one, maybe on Craigslist, or maybe it's at another local dealership. Don't tell us what they're asking. Just give us the information on the car. We'll put it in our computer. It'll spit out an average selling price. And then we'll also check our inventory. I looked this morning. We have about 400 cars in inventory. And what I can do is check our inventory to see if we have a twin like that and let you know what ours sells for. The other thing that we help people with is I have a new car cost guide I bring to the show, kind of show you what it looks like. And these cost guides have the new car invoices of every vehicle out there in the book. And Consumers Reports tells you that you should know if you're going to buy a new car what the invoice is because it helps you negotiate if you know what the dealer paid. I can give you that information at no charge. Consumers Reports charges $15 per invoice. So these are one of the little things that we do to help the people in the Pensacola area. Probably one of the most important things, and I saw on the way up here a billboard about that the billboard said, Don, you drive to work every morning. I'm not sure if you even notice it. I'm not going to mention the dealership's name.
Okay.
It's basically false advertising. It says that we will buy your car even if you don't buy a car from us, only at so-so and Motors. Or blank, blank Motors. And that's false advertising because that's not true. There's a lot of car dealerships that will make you an offer on your car, including Frontier Motors, even if you don't buy a car. I'm not sure which ones do which. They all have to buy cars to get cars for the lot. How else would they get a car? I think any dealership out there would buy a car.
Right.
Sometimes it's got to be really cheap because...
Well, the price has to be right. It is a business.
Yeah, it does have to. But some of them, Don, they're not interested in your car. So what they do, instead of not making you an offer, they make you a stupid, cheap offer so they can take that car to the auction and make a profit on it. I've seen that happen a lot of times where you would pull up to a car dealership and maybe you're going to, let's pick on somebody over in Mobile. Let's use the Lexus dealership. Let's say you pull up to the Lexus dealership with your F-350 pickup truck and you say, hey, I don't want to buy a car from you guys, but I'd like you to give me a buy bid on my truck. Well, they're not that interested in an F-350 pickup truck, but you know what? The used car manager, if he's got his wits about him, will give you a price because he knows what they're selling for at the auction. He can get right into the auction reports.
Right.
And so he'll back it up a couple of $1,000s and say, well, if I can get it for that price, I'll go ahead and buy it.
Well, sure.
So they're not false advertising when they say, I'll buy your car if you don't buy one from us. They're only false advertising if they say, we're the only ones that does this, which is crazy. Now, we buy anywhere from 5 to 15 cars every single week from private individuals. That's a lot of cars, folks. Now, one reason is because we are a military town.
Let me interrupt. From individuals rather than going to the auction yourselves. I mean, you are actively pursuing local buyers wherever you can.
I try to mention as often as possible because some people will watch this show, Don. Some people might be clicking channels and just watch it for a little bit, but I want to get the word out that I would prefer buying a vehicle from a private individual. Don, if you said tomorrow morning, hey, Cumulus is going to give me a company car, hallelujah, I don't need my Mitsubishi Outlander, by the way, which you bought from Frontier Motors, and you say, I don't need my car anymore, you could drive it to us. We would scan the ID number, and with the matter of 10 minutes, I'll make you an offer on. Now, again, let's just say, hypothetically, let's say retail is $10,000. I might make you an offer of $8,000.
Well, sure.
Because I have to make a profit. But some dealers might only offer you $6,000 for that car. And that's why you want that second opinion, folks. I'm not saying that every dealer out there is going to try to rip you off. Some dealers might need your vehicle. Some dealers might not. But the dealers that don't need your vehicle might still give you a bid. It's just going to be a really low bid. Wouldn't it be nice to have a second opinion in your back pocket? If you're going to go up, now let's just talk about World Ford. If you're going to buy a brand new Ford pickup truck, my suggestion is there's only one Ford dealer in town, and it's World Ford. So you go to World Ford, you say, I'm going to buy a brand new F-150 pickup truck. But if you've got let's say you got a 7-year-old Lexus you want to trade in, wouldn't it be nice to know what Frontier Motors would write you a check for that car? Now, let's just say hypothetically I tell you $10,000 and you go there and they don't get anywhere close to that. You can still trade it there and I'll buy it right from that dealer. Now, the reason you might want to do that is because if you trade your vehicle in, you pay a little less taxes. So a dealership's going to say, well, my bid's $1,000 lower, but you're saving $1,000 in taxes. You might say, well, I'll go ahead and trade it. Why not get the best of both worlds? Get the higher appraisal and still get the tax credit. You trade in at that dealer. They call me for a confirmation that I have appraised the vehicle. Let's just say it's $10,000. I say yes, as long as it's in the same condition as I appraised it in. I will go ahead and write a check for $10,000. They write that on their appraisal form per Frontier Motors. They get the car in trade. The next day they're there with the car, with the title, and we write them a check for it. So you've saved the taxes, you bought locally from the local Ford store, and you still get the good appraisal. Everybody should do this. Get the word out. If you're not in the market right now, maybe somebody at work, maybe a family member, relative says, hey, I'm going to go car shopping. What should I do? Well, the first thing you do is to go to Frontier Motors to get a free appraisal. And this appraisal is not an appraisal to kink your deal, to keep you from buying a brand new car. The reason we do this is twofold. Number one, a lot of times we'll end up with your car, which is great because I'd rather buy a car. Don, how many miles on your Outlander now? About
110,000.
I would never buy your car at the auction because, Don, if your car runs through the auction
Right.
They put a red light on because it's got over 100,000
Sure.
miles on, and they sell it as is. So if there's something wrong with it, I'm pretty much stuck with it when I buy it.
Correct.
So I never buy a vehicle that age at the auction, but I'd love to buy it from you because then I can take it for a test drive. I can take it to our mechanic in the back and have him do an inspection. If it's got a timing belt or chain, I can see if it. I can ask you if it's been changed. These are all things that I can get from a private individual, from yourself, that you can't get at the auction.
Correct.
The cars that I buy at the auction are cars that the auction guarantees, which generally, depending on the auction, is going to be 7 years or newer and has less than around 60 or 70,000 miles on. Then they put the green light on, which means they warranty the car for any issues. So you've got my price in your back pocket. You go to the dealer and you make a deal. Now, when I said that, the reason I do this is twofold. One of them is because I'm going to end up with your car. The other one is that when you come on our lot, we're going to take your car for around the block. Maybe it might take 15 minutes to do the whole thing, because we scan the ID number, we take pictures, we take it for a test drive, and then we put this all, we compile this data on a piece of paper, print it out, and sit down with you and give you that figure. That might take a total of 15 minutes. What happens a lot of time in those 15 minutes, you're out looking at some of our cars. And let's just say hypothetically, you're going to buy a brand new F-150 at World Ford. So you're waiting for me to do the appraisal on your Lexus, which you're going to be trading at the Ford store. And while you're waiting, you happen to trip across a 2016 F-150 that we have on a lot with 7,000 miles on. Well, of course, the next question out of your mouth is, well, how much would this one be compared to a new one? And Consumers Reports put in writing what I've been talking about for years. Last year, they put in writing that the first year depreciation on the average nationwide is 27%. That's the first year. That equates into an average of $9,200 depreciation in the first year. And trucks are even more expensive, because they said the average transaction last year was $34,000, which I thought was kind of cheap. I thought it would be more than that, because I look at a pickup truck. I'll tell you what, you take a look at an F-150, you get sticker shock, especially if it's a King Ranch or a Platinum. It's not unusual to get one of these vehicles to have a $60,000 window sticker. So even if they knock off $7,000, you're still looking at $53,000. What if I could sell you that vehicle 1 year old at $43,000? Now that's a lot of money, but it still sounds $10,000 cheaper than a new one. And that's where we come in. We specialize in the alternative to new. We've got cars on the lot that are just like new. People always ask me, where do you get these cars? I said, I have to go through all of the South to find these cars. And then I have to make sure that there's no issues with them, that they have not been in accidents, that they have not been smoked in, that they're not lemon law buybacks, all the issues people are nervous about. And then I have to get them at a good price. And sometimes I've got a bid on 100 cars to buy 10. And then I'll end up with a car like a 2016 Nissan Rogue that I've got on the lot with 112 miles on it. A 2016 Toyota Tacoma with 240 miles on, a 16 F-150. We talked about the F-150, folks. If you're going to buy brand new in Pensacola, you go to World Ford. They're our local dealer. I would want you to patronize them. But I've got one on the lot with 380 miles on it. Wouldn't that be a good one to look at if you're going to buy new at World Ford and look at ours? I have to sell it used because we're not a franchise dealership. I can't tell you that car's a new car. That's illegal. They have to pay for a franchise, and there's franchise infringement laws. I have to mark the box as used. If you got a good deal, maybe it paid $90. Let's just round it off and tell you I can sell it for $70. That's $20,000 depreciation with 1,000 miles on it. It just makes it blows my mind that somebody would buy a vehicle like that brand new. They obviously are not watching or listening to this show. Don, we better get these guys on the stick and make sure that everybody else gets the word. Here. Don, do we have a call?
This is Mike.
Hey, Mike, thanks for calling the Frontier Motor Show. How can we help you?
Hi, I've wondered on a question about Toyota Corolla LE, say a 16, with maybe 5,000 miles on it. What would you expect an average vehicle like that to go for?
Okay, well, I've got this one here that I've got with 30 miles on it, and I can sell that vehicle for, let's just say I can sell it for let's say 16.5. It's got 37 miles on it. Now, Mike, these Corolla, some of them are put into rental service. And some of the rentals are coming out really, really cheap, where you can buy them for like $13,000 for 16, but they don't have 5,000 miles. They're going to have more like 25,000 miles, but they're quite inexpensive. If you get a local trade-in with 5,000 miles, it's going to be a little bit less than the one that I've got here. So figure if I was going to take a stab at it, I'd say around 14,500 to 15,000 is what a 16 is going to run an LE model.
Yeah, and I guess that's a little bit higher than you talk about 20-some% there in the first year.
Right.
Corolla's a popular car, and it's probably not that high on the Corolla.
It's definitely not, and I'm glad that you brought that up, Mike, because I've always got to put an asterisk when we talk about the Consumers Reports. Says the average depreciation the first year is actually 27%. So obviously, if that's an average, there's some cars like the Jaguar I just talked about and the Tesla that has depreciated more than that, and there's other cars like a Corolla, a Honda Civic. And the best resale value vehicle, a lot of people don't know this, but the number one resale value vehicle in the nation is a Jeep Wrangler. It's got a higher resale value than a Lexus product, which traditionally has a very good resale value, but the Wrangler is actually number one. So if you were buying a one-year-old Wrangler, for example, Mike, not a Corolla, you would not save, we talked about a $9,200 depreciation. So even if I marked the car up $2,000, you'd be about $7,000. But you're right, the smaller the car, the less the savings. You could probably buy a brand new Corolla LE for around $18,000 to $19,000. So if you're looking at a one-year-old one for $15,000, you're still saving money, but you're right, it's not $7,000 or $8,000.
Now that Wrangler, they've really improved that vehicle in the last few years. So it's coming to fruition there.
Yes, they have. And the interesting thing is, Mike, that Consumers Report still rates it one of the worst vehicles on the road. But they sell like crazy. They've got only a 10-day supply of Wranglers in stock. The last time I checked the local dealer up at Hill Kelly. So they're flying off the shelf. But that's why sometimes when you read the books, the reason that Consumers Reports doesn't like them, because they say they don't handle very good. They get awful gas mileage. They're not the safest vehicle on the road. But the reason they sell is because they're the most fun vehicle on the road.
And people like them.
And people like them, yeah. Thanks for calling the show, Mike. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And folks, just so you know, we're the go-to dealer for advice. Like Mike just called and asked me my opinion, and he's actually right. There's a lot of vehicles that do depreciate. Every vehicle depreciates when you drive it off the lot that I know of. I don't remember the last time that I ran into a car that went up in value after you bought it. There might be some weird special edition cars out there, like, for example, the new Acura NSX, which is a race car.
Right.
They're bringing them out at like $160,000 and they're selling it for $190,000. So, but that's the extreme example of what we're talking about. Once in a while, when a new car comes out, like when they changed the body style on the Mustang, and when the 14 Stingray came out, which is the new body style for the Stingray, well, they were selling the Stingrays, for example, for the first 6 months for $5,000 to $10,000 over window sticker, and now they can't give them away. It's completely switched, but that's 2.5 years later. So whenever you get a hot vehicle, I have a friend of mine that's going to buy a Genesis. And if I haven't mentioned it, the Genesis is the Highline division for Hyundai. They started a new division. As a matter of fact, I think Alan Turner's building a building. It's going to say Genesis on it, and they're going to sell I think it's a G60 and a G90. They're calling all their cars Gs. I don't know if that stands for good or God awful name. I don't know what it is, but that's what they're calling the G series. And that car right now, a friend of mine in Wisconsin called me up the other day and said, hey, I can't get anybody to knock off a penny off this car. I said, well, you're not going to be able to normally for the first 6 months because they are a hot commodity. They're a brand new vehicle out. And there's a lot of people that are car nuts, so to speak, like myself, except I don't plunk my money down. But a lot of people don't care. I remember when the Corvettes came out, I ran into one of our customers at Frontier. He said, I'm going to buy a new Stingray. And I'm either going to buy it from Pete Moore or Sandy Stansing. I said, well, that's great if you're going to buy a brand new one. I said, but if you wait a year, you're probably going to save $7,000 or $8,000. He didn't wait. He went and paid the premium, paid over window sticker because he wanted it now. So I understand there's people like that out there and people that really don't care if they lose money when they buy a car. But I don't want it to be you. I'm the one that buys these cars. I shop all over the South to make sure I buy these cars with low miles on it. We talked about the Tacoma with 200 miles on it. A Genesis I have with 300 miles on it. A Tundra with 600 miles. A Camry with 700 miles. A Santa Fe with 1,000 miles. A Challenger with 1,600 miles. By the way, if you're still listening, I also have another Corolla that is got 1,200 miles on it. I didn't realize I just bought that. I just bought that 4 days ago. But it's a 14, not a 16. But that would save you a bunch of money. A 14 with 1,200 miles, original miles. A Hyundai Azera with, I'm going to go on and on about the fact that Frontier Motors is the alternative to new. So if you're thinking about buying a brand new car, come to us to get the invoice of a new one, or come to us to get a deal on a 1-year-old one, or come to us to get an appraisal, and come to us to get an out-the-door figure.
Or come to us to ask Iven Streckel with Frontier Motors a question. Us being WCOA Radio here in Pensacola, give us a call at 478-3116, 478-3116. We've got, about 8 minutes left in today's show. This is Talk at 10 on News Talk 1370. We'd be pleased to hear from you, the Frontier Motor Show. Mr. Streckel located, or his business is, at 230 Beverly Parkway because he's here in the studio. You get it? So give us a call, 478-3116.
And even though it's my job to talk a customer out of buying a brand new car and buying that 1-year-old car, because obviously I make money when I do that, that's what we specialize in, there's still a record amount of people last year in 2015 that bought new cars. If you don't know this yet, 2015 was the best new car selling year they ever had since they've been keeping records in the car business. 17.4 million cars. So as far as the new car industry is concerned, there is no recession, the best year ever. And if they have a good December, 2016 will beat 2015. That means there's a lot of people out there buying new cars. That means that there's going to be a lot of used cars out there for Frontier Motors to be able to save you thousands and thousands of dollars. And that goes back into full circle again. If people are buying new cars, I get their trade-ins. I don't know if you know this or not. This is unusual, but it does happen quite often. A lot of people buy a car and they don't like it, or they change their mind, or it's too low. It sits too low. It's too hard to get out of. I had an older gentleman trading a Corvette 2 months ago. I said, "Why are you trading a Corvette? It's got 1,000 miles on it." He said, "I can't get out of it anymore. My hips hurt." So there's a good example. Sometimes a military person buys a car and they think they're going to be here in the States for 5 more years and they get transferred. Boom, they're gone. So instead of putting that car up in storage, they bring it to Frontier Motors and say, "Hey, write me a check for this car or put it on consignment for me." Some people are actually fortunate enough to get a company car. I had this happen twice last month. It's kind of unusual. Don's still waiting for a company car, but
keep hoping.
Hasn't happened yet. So I bought their car for them. Some people do the Dave Ramsey thing, and they're going from a 3-car family down to a 2-car family, or a 2-car family down to the 1-car family. They're trying to reduce their debt, get ready for retirement, save their money, not make a car payment. So they show up on our doorstep at Frontier Motors, and they say, "Hey, Ivan, can I get a buy bid?" Let's say I give you a buy bid for $20,000 for your car. You say, "I really want a little bit more. The other thing I can do for you, I'll give you a little bit more if I put it on consignment for you." The reason I give you a little bit more because I don't have to tie up my cash. So normally if it's a $20,000 car on consignment, I'll put it on consignment for maybe $1,000 to $1,500 more than that. I don't charge more for that car. I just make less money on it. The advantage to you is that I'm doing all the work. And I can take a trade. And I don't know if you ever put a car on Craigslist. The first thing sometimes people will ask you when they call you inquiring about your car is, "Will you finance it for me? I got a couple $1,000 down. Can you take care of the payments for me?" Well, of course, the answer is normally no. The other thing is I've got another car I got to get sold first before I can buy yours. So I can take care of that because I take trade-ins. I can get financing. I can offer warranties. And sometimes if I have your car on consignment, let's say it's a Camry on consignment, customer comes in to look at a Honda Accord, and my salesman will show them the Accord, the Nissan Altima, and your Camry. Next thing you know, they're driving out in a Camry because they like it better, even though initially they were thinking they're going to buy an Accord. The nice thing about coming to an independent dealer like Frontier Motors, it's almost like going to an auto show. We have every make and model, and our salespeople don't have to sell you one make and model. If you go to a Toyota dealership, they're going to try to sell you a Camry if you're looking for a mid-sized car. And if you go to the Honda dealership, they're going to tell you why that Honda Accord is the best car ever made. And then you go to the Nissan store. And of course, the Altima or the Maxima is the best car ever produced. And they're all going to try to get you to buy their product. At Frontier Motors, we have all these cars I just mentioned all on one lot. So you can go from the Accord to the Maxima to the Altima to the Mazda 6 to all the other cars, a Ford Fusion, a Chevy Malibu, Chevy Impala. We have them all lined up there. So we don't have to sell you into a particular make and model. We just need you to pick one out. And then what we do is we give you a discounted, reduced bottom line price in writing within a matter of minutes. The out-the-door figure is the only figure important. I always kind of wonder why these dealers are trying to bamboozle customers by giving them these high trade-in values. You ever hear that? Well, yeah, you're giving me, I had this customer the other day, an extreme example. He was buying a $160,000 Porsche, and they were giving him $5,000 more for the trade-in than I was. And found out after doing the research, they should have actually been given him about $10,000 more because the markup on the Porsche was so high. So, folks, what I do is say, don't worry about your trade-in value. Don't worry about the asking price. Don't worry about the rebates. The only thing you need to worry about is what is that out-the-door figure? And if I give you an out-the-door figure of $20,000 and the new car dealership gives you an out-the-door figure of $25,000, now you just have to make a decision. Is saving $5,000 enough to make it worth my while to buy a car that might be 6 months old? Most people would say yes if it's a $5,000 or $7,000 or $8,000 savings, as long as the car smells like new and it looks like new. We've only got a couple of minutes left. I want to remind anybody that wants to watch this show, if you're listening to this on the radio right now, you can go to YouTube and you can find this. Just Google, put YouTube Frontier Motors, and you're going to see all of our shows that we've recorded, including this one, within the next couple of days. We also have a great Facebook page, so like us on Facebook, and you can watch this show on Facebook if you're so inclined. If you have any questions, of course, again, we are the go-to dealership for free advice. Our phone number at the dealership is 436-8080, and we have 5 sales managers standing by to help you with the answers to your questions, and that's what we do all day long. We know that if we help you get a good deal somewhere or help one of your friends get a good deal, when it comes down to recommending a dealer, you normally recommend the dealer that helped you get the deal, not necessarily the dealer you bought it from. Sometimes we end up winning both ways. We end up getting you a deal and we end up selling a car. When you have 400 in inventory, you pretty much have something for everybody. But if we don't, we also have a great locate program. We don't just take your name and number and call you when we happen to take one on trade. We actually go out and buy the car for you. We normally have between 30 and 50 customers, which we have right now, that are on the locate program that have come into us and said, this is what I'm looking for. I have a gentleman hopefully picking up his Highlander today. He came about, it's been about 60 days now because he had specific vehicle that he wanted me to locate, specific color, and specific mileage. Everything had to be, it took me 60 days to get the car, but today his vehicle will be ready for him. And it's a 2016 Highlander with 8,000 miles that will save him at least $4,000 to $5,000, if not more, over the price of a new one. We've got a great website, folks. Just Google Frontier Motors because we are the largest Frontier Motors in the nation. There's about 5 Frontier Motors. We're going to be the first one that comes up. 400 cars in inventory. We've got 31 detailed photographs, and we've got prices on every one of those cars, and there's a little link to an email and link to Carfax and AutoCheck, so you can get the history reports right off the bat at no charge, by the way. A lot of dealerships charge for the Carfax report. We have no charge. You click on it, it comes right up, tells you exactly what the history of the car was. Again, that's Frontier Motors, 230 Beverly Parkway. Thanks for listening, and of course, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Auf Wiedersehen.
Frontier Motors is down the street. Got the best deals that can't be beat. Don't overpay, come in today. Doing business the old-fashioned way. Frontier, we got the right price. Frontier, we'll treat you mighty nice. Frontier Motors, low overhead country.